You are now tuned into Flippin the Birds, a Philly Sports Network podcast.
What's going on, Eagles fans? Welcome all to episode 84 of Flippin the Birds. I'm Bryan Cameron, joined by Morgan Burkett. See, I tripped over your last name in my head before I even said it.
Yeah, that's why I got rid of it. I dropped it.
All right, Morgan Burkett. Burkett, right?
It's whatever you want.
No. It's an after hours, and joined by John El Parcero Zapata.
Hey, let's go. I like that.
Nailed that one. I don't see what the problem is, but hey.
Listen, no, because I saw Morgan on my screen, so I'm like, damn, what's the last name? What happened to the last name? So I had to wing it. I'm like, Burkett. It has to be Burkett. If not, you might be Morgan Burnett, the safety.
I'll take it.
I think that's an insult.
Whoa. He wasn't bad in his prime, right? I mean,
he's in the league, right? Can't complain.
Where is he now? Is he in Cleveland or? Because he's not with the Packers no more.
He's right here.
I like it. All right, I dig that one. So how are we feeling, guys?
Morgan?
Yeah, I'm doing good. It's nice to wake up on Tuesday, have a pod to come to talk my bullshit, and with other guys that love sports. So good.
Oh, damn straight. Well, for Bryan, first off, thanks for having me back on, man. I miss Chris, but Morgan, it is a pleasure to meet you, a fellow PSNer, man. These days, you're always Bryan. You're always just trying to stay busy, and for me, the rent is due every day. And I ain't missing a payment. You feel me? The cliche. That's the only cliche. I'm not. We might get some more, but we might get some more. But no, seriously, thank you for having me on, man. I'm excited to talk some birds. It's been the off season. But Bryan, there's a little bit of optimism going on with the Birds, and I'm actually really excited for Eagles season. If you would have asked me at the end after the Washington game, I would have said the complete opposite. But I'm excited, man. Let's talk some Birds.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. So it kind of goes hand in hand. What I want to talk about is the expectations for the Eagles. Not so much as what it used to be. People, expected this team to be a Super Bowl caliber team, the new norm. As Peterson quoted it, but he's no longer here. But a lot of people feel like this is a bottom feeder team, and I personally don't see that. I mean, you got to look at the yes, the rookie class, they do have to develop, they have to learn. They're not going to hit the gridiron flying. It's not possible. Maybe Devontae Smith, but nobody really else. But the veterans they added, Ryan Kerrigan, they added Raven Leclerc. Is that the swing tackle?
Raven Clark, yeah.
The Raven Clark. Guys, I twisted that one too. They're showing that they can actually possibly compete. And like I told you guys before the podcast, I feel like the one advantage that they do have is the advantage of the unknown. Nobody knows what this team is going to look like. Yes, we know it's going to be a West Coast offense, but we don't know what the defense is going to look like. We don't know what these players are capable of in a system where it's based on their talents and their abilities. How do you guys feel like this team will fare heading into this new regime?
Yeah, you're glossing over number 84, but I guess we'll come back to it.
This is.
That's all right. No,
did I say this is episode 84?
Yeah.
This is your favorite episode.
Yeah, my favorite episode.
It's your last name. Your last name completely threw me off. Look at that, bro.
Yeah, some words got said this week about number 84. I don't know. We'll come back to it. But yeah, I think you said it. You said it well. Like I think that there's an unknown about this team, but a positive unknown. It's like I'm excited to see what these guys have to show. You're adding good pieces. I don't know if this is a team where we're instantly back in the Super Bowl conversation or anything like that. But I think that when you're talking about even just the division as a whole, it's a very exciting division and up for grabs. So if the Eagles can even get back into that conversation of winning the division, they're going to have a good chance. And we all know what happens when they get to the playoffs, right? You can't count this team out. I know we changed coaching staff, we changed quarterbacks, but this is a team that, doesn't mind being the underdog. And I feel like if we do get to the playoffs, the sky's the limit. So it'll be an exciting season. And you're right, you've got a lot of young pieces, but some vets too that'll be exciting to watch. So I'm excited.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you guys. Like I said, like the optimism with this team, it is real. There is that unknown, and when you're talking about the NFL, like how many times have we seen the last place team go on next season to win the division? I'm not saying the Birds are going to win the division here, but what I do see with this team is a lot of young pieces, and like you mentioned, you got some veteran players here, and not to mention the veteran players that are still here from the Super Bowl year. So you mix that all together. Listen, it might not be pretty some days, but some weeks, but a lot of weeks, I think it's gonna be a lot of fun. I think they're gonna give a lot of teams a lot of fits. What I do see this year could be a lot like 2016, where you got a lot of young pieces. You're gonna have your growing pains, but that team was competitive, and that team, you really saw it was the building blocks that they placed to go on eventually to win Super Bowl in 2017. Bryan, you know how I am, man. I'm all about positivity. I'm all about the cliches and all that type of stuff. What's up, Jeremy? How you doing, man? But no, with Nick Sirianni and his whole coaching staff, I love the positivity, the aura you feel down there at the NovaCare. That's the type of stuff that gets me going, and I love that Nick Sirianni is putting that on his team here. And I think with the way his mentality is coming from Frank Reich, and same thing with Jonathan Gannon, who comes from the Zimmerman regime and whatnot. You guys are talking about the West Coast offense, and a lot of people believe that Jonathan Gannon might bring this cover 2 4-3 defense, right? But I really do believe that they are just going to give the teams what they give them, right? And I think that adjustments, as an Eagles fan, after seeing Doug Peterson, so at times the adjustments were not the best.
There were no adjustments.
Yeah, well, I'm thinking like 2017, like what were the eventually, he started running the ball, right, and stuff like that. But
it was like pulling teeth in that regard. Like with Peterson was like, you guys saw that I ran the ball. Like, no, bro, like it's football. If you're gonna be competitive and be smart at it. Like, I'm not knocking what Peterson did because Peterson was phenomenal. He's a great coach in my book. But he's kind of like the Jim Shorts of the offense. He gave his tell every single time. That's not how you play poker. You gotta you gotta have your poker face. And Peterson didn't have his poker face from 2018 till last season.
And one last point, this division. Listen, there's unknowns all over the place. Like there's too much hype going on with the Giants tonight, Bryan. I know you know very well. Can the Giants live up to this hype? That's really what I'm going to be looking at. Same thing with Dallas. Is Dak really going to be back? Is that defense really going to be much better? That was horrendous defense last year. And with Washington, honestly, it's just the quarterback because I do like what they have. Obviously, that defense is pretty much won them the division, and I do like their weapons that they have.
So real quick, speaking of the unknown, I actually do have a special guest jumping on.
Oh, yeah, let's go. Oh, let's go.
Welcome back from his time away, Chris. What's going on, man?
Hold on. I'm a guest?
I said special, did I not?
My man just lost the show.
If I said co-host, it would have been like a tell. We're talking about poker face here.
Hold on. Who made this damn show? Special guest, Miami.
None of this was here before.
Yeah, welcome to my show, Chris.
I am the captain now.
I am the captain now.
Thanks for coming. Great to have you on.
What's up, Zach?
If anything, Morgan's smile shines brighter than Brian's head. So it's Morgan's show now, I think.
All right, I'll take it.
So listen, man. I'm not gonna lie. I've told you many times through text. I kind of miss you. It's kind of weird not seeing you, like a spitting image. The baldness and baldness.
I got hair, bro. Should we bring up the pictures that you posted like during your anniversary week or whatever of you? Your hair down to your
Yo, Chris is the king of blackmail, bro.
No, seriously.
You had John's hair, just uglier.
I don't think it was that long, but okay. I'll take the credit for that one.
Let me just preface all this just in case my mom or my wife is listening. Yes, I'm driving, but the mic is off. Okay, I'm being safe.
So you are driving right now, okay?
I'm in my car right now. I have to see. I'm still thinking about the show that we built together.
Are you getting emotional?
I don't even know what we're
Yeah,
talking
I
about
remember.
today. I think what we're talking about. So I just figured.
All right, so I'll fill you in. So right now we're talking about the reality versus expectations for the Eagles and how they can actually be a dark horse team in the NFC. Because of the unknown abilities that they do have that nobody is really accustomed to just yet. Kind of like what Washington pulled off last season.
And what does everybody think?
How's everyone doing?
So I believe that the Eagles have an advantage because nobody knows what kind of defense that they'll be running. As far as how Gannon is focused on building his team around the talents of his players. The offense is similar. You don't know what you're going to get from this offense. And I think Morgan agreed and John agreed as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, we agree with Bryan a lot more on the show now that you're gone. So
Chris, it's going to be a pesky team, but it's going to be fun. They won't be a playoff team, but it's going to be fun.
I think that's the right term for it. I think there's going to be a team that's not going to win many games, but they're going to be in our games.
Mhm.
I think that they are going to be like for the aforementioned stuff, like not like everybody saw 4 games in, and apparently people think he's the worst quarterback in the world after those 4 games. But you pair him now with Heisman Trophy winning former teammate of his, and you pair him on the line in Nick Sirianni, who loves wearing T-shirts of his current players. That he's such a players coach, a la what we saw from Doug Goodham a couple years. That he was just a local guy with his players. I think these players are going to really buy into what Sirianni's. I think this schedule is what, like the easy schedule in the league, whatever they want to say.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, they are playing a lot of really hard. And I don't see them winning more. I think their cap is 5 wins. But I think in those 17 games, you could look at 10 or 11 that are going to be really in. And if the ball bounces a certain way, maybe they win those games. But I just don't. There's just a lot of question marks. Actually, Jalen Hurts is the biggest one. Is he really going to take that step up from that 4 game where we saw him so dynamic as a passer and a runner, not being an actor, but still he was letting it loose like we saw old Carson do, and we saw Jalen do now, and he can run. And now add in, we're going to use Jalen Rager the right way. We're going to see more than a 5-game mega stretch of Travis Fulgham, maybe and we'll see Devonta Smith do his thing. So we did a lot, and maybe a reason if this offensive line is healthy, it's the best offensive line in football. And you're not going to get a impact on a quarterback. So if they're healthy and Jalen Hurts stays upright and he does his thing, they can surprise. My personal feeling, I think they'll cap 5-1. I think the offense will 0-17 and we'll have something.
What was last thing? He said the Dolphins go with 0-17 and what? And we get the first overall pick.
We'll get the first overall pick. We'll get maybe the 8th or 9th. And we won't. But Jalen Hurts will show enough that we won't need that quarterback at 1. And someone will fall in love with the quarterback, and we'll be able to trade down from 1. It's all a part of how we master plan that he wants to. People can stop hating him.
So are you Team Howie now?
Hell no.
Listen, before you mention Nick Sirianni sporting shirts of his players, you've been sporting a shirt pretty often lately.
Hell yeah. Listen, I still have my question marks about Devonta Smith's weight, and I will until he puts on an actual football uniform and plays a regular season. I will always have those questions until September, whatever game. But I mean, I'm a sucker for NBA Jam crossovers, so I have to rock it as much as I can. I mean, what kind of fan would I be if I didn't wear it at the gym? Max lives after everything. I mean,
All
I
right.
am
So
trying to get armed with.
Chris feels like there's a 5-win team. How do you guys feel?
Well, I think he brings up a couple of good points. I think that one is the offensive line being healthy is going to be absolutely massive. That's something that we saw with Carson. Like whether or not you like Carson or not, you have to agree that he didn't really get a fair shot with a healthy O-line, and at times it was horrendous. Like one of the worst displays I've ever seen. So if we get a healthy O-line, I think that one of the things that I've been thinking of recently is that, this is supposed to be the Jalen Hurts prove it year, but we're moving into a system really that we've saw in the past. It's how high can Carson Wentz take us really? It's we're going to live and die by what Carson Wentz can do. And we're moving to a system now. You saw Phillip Rivers in that system last year. You saw Jacoby Brissett in that system. Like it's not really predicated on how great is this quarterback. It's how many mistakes can we limit from our quarterback. And then it's going to come down to, again, what Chris is talking about is like those tight games. These are all going to be tight games. Something that I don't know. I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, if you guys feel a different way, but there's certain games that like I just knew starting, like we weren't going to compete in, like we just weren't going to be there today. And I feel like that is going to change going into the future. Is there's always going to be games that we're close in, and it's really just going to be those couple of moments, those 5 or 6 plays from Jalen Hurts is whether or not he's a good quarterback or a great quarterback. So it's going to be harder to evaluate. We're not going to like throw the team on his shoulders as much, but having healthy O-line, having steps up from Jalen Reagor, having Devontae Smith come in and play like the first round receivers that we've seen on other teams. We haven't had that luck, but there's going to be a lot of that. And I think too, just looking at our schedule, that early kind of road stretch where we're playing, I mean, it starts in week 2 really with the 49ers. That they're going to be a hard team to beat. And it's, Cowboys, Chiefs, we get a week off. Well, I mean, Panthers won't be a terrible team, but then we play the Bucks. Like it's just going to start early and often. If we can weather that storm, you might be looking at a 9-win team. I think it's really that first stretch. If we come through that stretch and we're, 1-5 or we're 2-4, it's going to be really hard to make it a positive season, a playoff season. But if we can win some of those early games or stay close and then win the easy ones, I mean, again, the playoffs is not out of reach. So that's where I'm kind of thinking is we're going to find out probably in the first 6 weeks whether or not the playoffs is realistic.
I agree with Morgan. That's a really good point there. Yeah, when I looked at the schedule, it's like, woo, it's gonna be rough. But I really feel like it's gonna be, especially on a young team, going through those up and downs. That is so beneficial, and you learn from it as the year goes on. And I really feel like with this coaching staff, the way this coaching staff's mentality is, it's gonna be really big. Personally, I see this team being a 7-8 win team. We'll see that means playoffs. I don't see this team being a playoff team, but like I said, they're going to be in a lot of close games. And like I said in 2016, that team played in a lot of close games and they lost them, but they learned from those. And that's like I said, the building blocks that went on to win the Super Bowl next year. To the offensive line point, I'm curious about Brandon Brooks. I keep hearing about him in the trading block, and I'm curious if he's actually fully back to. Obviously, he's older, so that's going to be tough, and he's been going through some bad injuries in his career as well. But curious what that's going to be like. If he does somehow get traded, or if he is not healthy, or if he gets hurt, who's going to be that guard again? I mean, I liked what Herbig gave us last year. I really thought that he showed me stuff that showed me that he can maybe be the future at the guard position. I don't think they're going to use Landon Dickerson early on in the season. At least I think they're going to milk that as much as they can.
Yeah, I think they might end up redshirting him for the season.
Yeah, I could see that as well. I don't, at least in the first half of the season, I don't see him playing. But no, but yeah, I'm definitely curious about that. But when you talking about bringing Stoutland back, and you still have Kelsey and Lane Johnson on that line, those are two veteran guys that can really help. I really think that could help whoever is in the rest of the line there. But no, it's gonna be a lot of fun. Yeah, like what Morgan said, I'm really curious about Devontae Smith and just the receiving corps in general, because I've been bitten by, just being so hyped. Like I was hyped about Jalen Reagor. I was one of those few guys that was actually hyped about Jalen Reagor, but I didn't watch the full tape with Justin Jefferson in the national championship game. But I'm curious about Travis Fulgham. Can Sirianni get the most out of him? Can he get Reagor to being the guy we all thought he could be? There's a lot of fun question marks on this team, man.
Well, there's finally a question mark that's actually finally answered, and we're not going to actually see Jason Peters touch this offensive line this season, which I'm actually ecstatic about. My thing with that is that you're providing the offensive line with more athleticism, more ability to not be held back by Jason Peters and his old age, because to me that's what it felt like on some run plays, on some even pass blocks.
He's not tired yet, and it's still only.
Do what?
You do know he's not retired yet, and it's only June. Like,
yeah. But do you bring Jason Peters back with a new regime? Like, it doesn't make sense to me. Like, if I'm Howie, I'm not stepping on any toes. Like, that's the whole point of this new connection. Like I mentioned a couple weeks ago, is Howie's part of the boys club now.
He's not retired. As long as he's not retired, there's still a chance he can sign back with the team.
It's not happening. You Debbie Downer.
I feel like we take for granted how damn impressive Jordan Mailata
I was gonna say
his journey has been.
It's phenomenal.
Loved it.
He learned a new sport at the age of 21, and in 4 years he's he's a good starter. That's a player that would start for a lot of teams in the league. And it's just insane. I think we just we take it for granted, but I can't think of any other example in sports that's been that successful with transition. Like maybe some of the niche sports that I don't know that much about, but it's just straight up incredible.
And I feel like you don't now we're gonna have this team where it's they're driving now, they're vibing now. We know who's at what position as long as everybody stays healthy. You finally know that there's no question marks behind the offensive line and Jalen Hurts. There's no Carson Wentz to be battling with, to be distracted by the headlines anymore. And you have a version of Jalen in the wide receiver room now. You have Devontae Smith, who is what Jalen is in the quarterback room, which is phenomenal. And then they're pretty much, buddy at this point. I personally believe that they'll definitely be like a 9 to 8 win team. But I do believe that this rebuilding, this retooling is going to be accelerated by at least a good, 3 miles at this point.
If Jalen is the quarterback, that'll solve a lot of problems too, man.
Absolutely
that is the position in the sport.
It's true.
So speaking of solving some problems, Chris, I'm glad you're on this podcast today, because a friend of ours has been a recurring topic on the last 4 podcasts, and that's Greg Ward. And ironically, this is episode 84. So I'm going to give Morgan the floor, because we're going to let Morgan explain why Greg Ward deserves to be a part of this wide receiver group.
All right. Well, I've been saying it for weeks. I feel like, again, he's got some things that are hard to explain, but all the evidence you need was over this past week. Darius Slay was doing Twitch. I think he was doing COD or something like that. And someone asked him who the hardest receiver to guard on the team was. And I don't think it wasn't any hesitation in his voice. Now, I know too that they're really good friends, him and Greg Ward. Mm-hmm. But no hesitation, Greg Ward's the hardest receiver to cover. And I think you got a bunch of young guys. I don't think Jalen Reagor was ever a top 10 route runner. That's not what he does. Mm-hmm. But there's something to be said for what Greg Ward brings to the table. And I've been saying it for a few weeks now. And it's similar to the defense we talked about last week. There's a premium that this coaching staff holds for IQ. And he just if you watch film, again, he was not really part of the rotation. The fact that he even got in was really just due to injury. And so the fact that he had any production at all was kind of out of left field. Mm-hmm. So I think, again, we kind of took that for granted, but he just if you're a coach and you're coaching young guys, or you're a coach, you're putting on his film and you're watching what he does. He might not get the football, but he's not taking any plays off. I can tell you that for a smaller guy, he's not a terrible blocker, not a great blocker, but is willing. And he just runs smart routes. He just knows, there's something to be said for people who are natural receivers, right? Devontae Smith's a natural receiver. Jalen Reagor is a natural receiver. Greg Ward had to learn all this. He learned it coming from quarterback. I'm sure that he took Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Thank you. I've been saying this for weeks now, and like they're like you have one of the guys who's a premier corner in this league who's saying he is a tough person to cover. Like you can't take that for granted. He is a good player. Again, I think we were talking about this right before the pod started. I don't know where he fits in this offense, especially if Rager's bumping inside. We've talked about that versatility, and everyone is going to play everywhere. But I don't think it's out of the realm of possibilities that he's the fourth or fifth receiver on this roster. And you have to factor in special teams. They might take someone and just have them for special teams, but I think that he might be first person, depending on how versatile Fulgham can be. I think he might be the fourth receiver off, which is going to be exciting for me, at least, just to say I told you so. Really.
I mean, Morgan, I agree with your analysis on Greg Ward. One thing I don't want to see Greg Ward ever do again is return punts. I think I'm good on that. I think I would rather see maybe Rager get a try at that, but. I mean, for me, listen, I love Greg Ward. I mean, it not just because of the story that it is, but I mean, listen, the guy worked his butt off to get to where he's at right now, and for Darius Slay to say that, I mean, come on, like that's a pretty high praise there. But when I look at the receiving core, for me, I mean, I think the top three, Fulgham, Devontae Smith, and Jalen Reagor, I think that they will be locks on this roster. And then it gets really interesting. You know, Quez Watkins showed me something last year. That speed is pretty freaking valuable. You know, we keep talking about how these receivers for the Eagles always lack speed and whatnot, but that man can fly, and he showed us last year. Trayvon Grimes really intrigues me. Now, I don't think he can make the roster, but there was inconsistency issues in college from what I hear. But that is a prospect I'm very, very intrigued. I'm going to be watching him come camp time. But yeah, it's really going to be I mean, how can you not love Greg? But I agree. I think he can make this roster as that fifth or fourth receiver. But it'll be interesting how these young guys push Greg Ward, man. But that veteran leadership too, do not underestimate that.
So John and Morgan are team Greg Ward. Chris, you want to take the first shot, or you want me to go?
Greg Ward equates to say we're at the bar at 2 a.m. and that girl's giving out and just had a few too many tequila sunrises, and she's with her friends, and she's looking real cute. Okay, she's with her friends though. All right, let's go hang out. And then you the next morning you roll over and you're like, oh, and you're like, wait a minute. She was with all these friends, and she's the hottest one of all her friends. And then you look at the picture, and see that her friends were, so it's like the hottest one, the ugly one.
Score is a score, baby. Score is a score.
Score is a score.
That's 6 points right there.
That was Greg Ward. I absolutely love Greg Ward. I have a Houston jersey in my closet right now. But we can't say this guy is I know, and I get the Darius praise. When I saw that, my first thought was, oh shit, this is bad for my brand. But we just can't keep pretending that people that sell because someone else was selling means that they're going to be a really good piece of the puzzle. Again, great story, awesome story. I love him, absolutely love him, but there's an upgrade for everything that he does. He's a very good route runner, but with that route run comes with like no speed. So I mean, he can catch, but that's like the number thing a receiver needs to have to do. So congratulations, but at like route run, we already upgraded that in Devontae Smith and probably Jalen Reagor this year with the way Terry didn't want banana routes. Pretty much everyone else is faster than him. And I guess he has one of the best hands. Devontae Smith can pluck the air. And to John's point, don't want him anywhere near punt returns, or kick returns, or any sweeps or any screens. So when you don't want him on sweeps and screens and punt returns and kick returns, where does he play? Like can he be the black Taysom Hill? Can he play quarterback? Because that's really there's really not much for him to do on this team when there's talent around him. And again, and I hate being an asshole about it, but like there was no one else on the team last year to do anything. So yeah, he stepped up and he was like de facto wide receiver 1 for a few games. It was really because Ray was hurt, Deshaun Jackson was hurt, Alshon Jeffrey was hurt, everybody was hurt. So Greg Ward stepped up. So, like kudos to him, but there was a reason why they did wide receiver through free agency, through draft, the last however many years, and that's with Greg Ward on the roster.
Chris, what if we could maybe swap Greg Ward for Julio Jones?
Don't get us started on that.
They're going to have to throw in the Calvin Ridley too, because we got to make it.
Well said.
So a couple of was last week or maybe the week before, I made the analysis that to me Greg Ward is the wide receiver version of Zach Ertz. We know Zach can catch the ball. He can be there when needed. Greg Ward is the same way. How many broken tackles do you guys think Greg Ward had last season?
2.
1.
Maybe 1.
I was gonna say not many.
Yards after the catch. How many yards after the catch?
30.
3.
40. Wait, what? 3?
3.1 yards after the catch.
Oh, average.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So my thing,
average 30. You got to pronounce that question.
Sorry, that's my fault. Yeah.
Pretty yards of separation was like 2 or 2 and 3. So like the corners were always on him. He was towards the bottom of the league in average yards of separation. The guy was not in separation at all.
How many receptions did he have?
Receptions, he had 53 receptions out of 79 targets, which is great. I mean, he's there when needed. He's really good, but the issue at hand is like, I feel like keeping Greg Ward on this team is you're limiting your offense and what could be in the rookies and the young guys. John Hightower, who we know can actually beat somebody on the outside. You got Quez Watkins, who we saw can actually do a lot of damage actually with his speed. And then you have Travis, you have Rager, and then you have Devontae. So that's what it's already 5 receivers.
See, my problem is I'm not a John Hightower guy at all.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of his either.
What I fear is that if for whatever reason Fulgham doesn't turn out to be the guy we saw in the first half of the season, I have all the confidence in the world that he will be, but if he doesn't, then you look at what's on the roster and we're essentially another version of what Carolina has tried to be for years. And that we're speed. Granted, DeVonta Smith, great route runner, great hands. But like, there is a reason why that you can't just have one type of receiver. And like, I like John Hightower. I don't love him. I like Quez Watkins, but they are essentially the same receiver. Maybe some of them have different upsides. John Hightower is a bit longer. Quez is a bit, better of a route runner, maybe a bit more lateral movement. But you need that player, and especially when you're coming in to an offense who loves to get creative, who loves to move people around, you do risk being kind of a one-trick pony. Now, I know that there's a ton of talent on this offense. I'm not too worried about that. But similar to how, you have Carson Wentz throwing to Ertz a million times, you don't just want Jalen Hurts bombing the ball deep all the time, right? Mm-hmm. And if Rager can't be the route runner we hope he can, and Fulgham doesn't turn out to be who he is, you need Greg Ward. You need him. And like you were saying, he might not get yards after the catch, but if we're talking 5 yards on every first down, you'll take that. You'll take that 100 times out of 100. This is the NFL, and yards of separation, he might not be getting 3. He might not be Tyreek Hill. But there's a reason why he's coming down with that 75% of the balls thrown to him.
Mm-hmm.
That's incredible. Like that's
67%. Sorry.
Yeah. So like in an NFL scene for a slot receiver who's a converted quarterback, that's pretty damn good. You'll take that, right? And we hope that all these receivers end up being what we hope they are, and the track record says they might not be. So you better hope that there's someone on the roster when maybe it's injuries, maybe it's they don't pan out. There's someone that's going to catch the ball, and I think DeVonta Smith solves that problem. Like right off the bat, DeVonta Smith is a huge upgrade over Greg Ward. I'm not going to argue that, But there's something to be said for, why, Miami's piling up on 3 receivers. You see all these teams pile up on 3-4 receivers. Like, you need these guys to do what they do. So I think Greg Ward, there's no other person on the roster that does what Greg Ward does.
Right.
Maybe Ertz. I think that's a great comparison, actually. But, we're talking about a guy who is a perennial Pro Bowler, set records that may never be beaten. Right.
Yeah.
So that's my 2 cents. I said it week in, week out.
Listen, if Fulgham doesn't pan out, which I don't think he's not going to pan out, then I hear you. I completely hear you. Then Ward needs to stay on this roster and just to be that security blanket. But the likelihood is Fulgham doesn't need to do too much this year, which is great. And he's going to be there when needed. Then you got to think about also the biggest question mark in J-Jaw. What if J-Jaw actually ends up being a decent receiver now? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like there's too much working. I feel like there's too much working against Greg Ward. And that's really what I'm trying to say. There's too much working against him.
Chris is going to pull the car over at this point.
He's about to crash.
Hey, listen, I just parked my car. All right? So, as I leave on a J-Jaw freaking note, you know what? Morgan, I come back next week. Bryan won't be here, so it'll be me and you. Okay? So
Listen,
yeah. After that comment, I don't know if you should.
No, but listen, what I'm trying to say, like you got these guys that are stockpiled below the top 3, right? What if these guys start panning out? What if these guys start, deserving more time?
Ward over J-Jaw. After a big Greg Ward thing, I'm taking Greg Ward 100 times out of 100 times over J-Jaw.
Do you know what I do? I move J-Jaw to tight end and see what you can do there before I
move J-Jaw to the slot.
I would move J-Jaw to tight end and trade him to the tight end.
And transfer him to what?
And then trade him to a team that needs a tight end. We don't need him as a tight end. Say he's the Spanish Tim Tebow. He's the Spanish Tim Tebow.
The Spanish Tim Tebow?
I think you can make more of a case for keeping him on the roster as a 3rd tight end than you could as a receiver. I think that, like, straight up, you could make a better case.
Well, the problem is that J-Jaw is going to have to go up against my boy Jack Stahl, you know what I'm saying? Because he's about to lock up the other tight ends.
No, but Jack Stahl is actually might be a low-key really good pickup.
How are those hands? I hear he's great blocking. How are those hands, though?
Steady.
Cool.
Just steady. Not
Hakeem Butler season, though. Hakeem Butler.
That's what I'm looking forward to see, man.
I love the obscure names there, man.
That's a second-round pick, right? Third?
Second round pick,
yeah.
I wanted to point out, just going forward, though, like, I don't mind if we have a bunch of speed receivers if the tight end play is really good. Now, I don't know what Dallas's future is. I mean, this is really a big year for Dallas. I mean, we don't even know what the heck is going to happen to Zach either, but you can find yourself a really good tight end. I honestly don't mind if you got a bunch of speed guys. I know it's hard to find those Travis Kelce's, like those don't come out of nowhere, but I mean, you see how KC runs their offense. Like, it's pretty much he's the top option. I mean, Tyreek Hill just burns people, but I really wouldn't mind it.
I mean, Dallas can really go off, but like you said, it's a big year.
Right.
Stay healthy too, man. They still haven't figured out the Zach Ertz situation, and it's contract year for Dallas. Like, there's too many things working against the tight end position right now.
I'm
for real.
I'm interrupting to say goodbye. Thank you.
Thanks for coming on, Chris.
So just to clarify, we will be seeing Chris next week on the podcast. Am I right?
I'll have to tune in.
I think I could be back as a guest instead of a host next week.
Listen, I had to keep it mysterious, okay?
Guy is gone for 4 weeks, and this is the treatment I get.
He's relegated to the guest.
All right, man. Well, have a good night, brother. We'll see you next week.
Good talking to you, Chris. Take care now.
See you next week, Chris.
Chris is Fonte.
I mean, you guys know why I did the guest thing, like to keep it mysterious. If I said my co-host, you guys know who's coming on.
Yeah, but he misses you guys.
I was thinking, am I going to come on again in another screen? What's going on? I don't know.
But getting back to Greg Ward, I don't dislike the guy. I do love the story. I just think if this is truly an evaluation year, you got to evaluate every single piece of this roster.
Yeah. I think whether or not he's on this roster, man, I think that you're going to see a big jump this year. I think that he finally kind of found what he does well. I don't know what it is. I think it's just like a me thing, but I love converted receivers. Like, DBs, quarterbacks, like they just
Wasn't Julian Edelman a converted receiver too? Was he a
He was-
quarterback?
Yeah, I used to play with him in NCAA football, man. That was fun. Kent State, man.
but they just see the field a bit different. So it's fun to watch them because they're not running, like I think a lot of receivers have learned like run to the sticks, do your route. And I think that like these quarterbacks are like they know where it's going to be open. They're going to the place. It's just a different way to look at it. And I think you need that, especially as the game develops. So I love to see converted receivers. Also DBs. I mean, they've had less success, but there's a few of those. It's cool to see.
I agree with you. I mean, you're seeing it more. They were in the draft. There was a Chaz something went to Minnesota. He was a converting quarterback to linebacker.
Yeah, Chaz Surratt, right? Surratt.
Yeah. You just see, like you said, you do see things differently. Like when you're playing quarterback and you move to wide receiver, you know what your quarterback wants, and when you're doing like what Chaz did, like you convert from quarterback to linebacker, you know what the quarterback's looking at. So that's definitely an advantage for them for sure. So
before we move to the next subject, Parcero, you actually had a comment early on. I didn't want to interrupt Chris with it, but you actually had a question. Not regarding Eagles, but maybe you can answer this.
I know that this Birds talk, but do you know what MLS has a 2-week break? I love how people interrupt our Eagles talk for MLS.
He's migrating.
What world do we live in? Jeremy, there's an international break around the world. There's a lot of international tournaments and friendlies going on. So the MLS, the way the schedule works, we need it to be like that because you don't want the MLS competing with the NFL, so they have to play through the summer. But unfortunately, that's when the world usually has their international competition. So the MLS will be just a 2-week break. But thanks for coming on in, Jeremy.
Thanks for coming, Jeremy. We appreciate the view.
So now, speaking of somebody that's actually been converted, Jalen Hurts has been converted to what we believe the franchise quarterback for the time being.
I hope so, man.
Now it's coming out that he could be a dark horse MVP, which it's not. It's not wild. I mean, I don't know. Like I wasn't so high on Jalen when he got drafted because I was so focused on Carson, and I feel like they're so disrespectful to Carson. But if you actually look at Jalen's games from Oklahoma to now, like the kid's more polished than people give him credit for. Like the whole accuracy thing drives me nuts. Like 70% accuracy in college in Oklahoma. Struggled in Philly, but Peterson came out 2 weeks ago saying that he had a hand injury. So it's kind of like I feel like people are they're not reading truly in between the lines. They're looking at what this person is saying and what that person is saying and running with it without looking at the context.
Yeah,
I just don't get did people not watch the Cardinals game last year? Honestly, he showed me a lot in that game.
Saints game.
What was the game that he threw for 300?
The Cardinals game.
It was the Cardinals. Okay, yes.
It's 3 or 4 touchdowns in the first half alone, and to me, yes, the Saints game was cool. It was really nice, but I felt like he won the game a lot on his legs. In that Cardinals game, he showed off that arm. My man was testing Patrick Peterson. I know Patrick's not the same guy he once was, but the rookie QB to have the gumption to test Patrick Peterson. I'm just saying.
It was ballsy. It was definitely ballsy.
And I don't know if we give enough weight to the fact that he was playing in a very, very boring Doug Peterson offense. This is a coach that won the Super Bowl and then had a one bad year and is still jobless. It was dreadful. It was straight up dreadful. Carson Wentz couldn't do anything. And you come into a team that all the talk, man. I don't know. I was just watching interviews back from the last 2 weeks and all the talk. All the offensive players are in love with this offense, man. Mm-hmm. They are so excited. They love Jalen Hurts. That goes way far. People will do anything. You see Tom Brady, man. He's working with some decent receivers. He's working with some, weird, strange offenses, but people just want to play for him, right? So you get a guy like that in your locker room. I think that this offense is really going to surprise people with the ceiling being one of the top 10 offenses in the league. We really could be with the possible talent we have on this and the way that I don't know. I just get this feeling about the offense of how they're going to play for Sirianni. We could be looking at a very surprisingly good offense.
I think the scary thing is that every single player on this roster so far what we've seen has the buy-in. Has completely bought into Sirianni and his
100%.
His culture. Like that's to me that's scary. Like what's more scary than having great players is having a great team. And a great team doesn't really consist of, of numbers. It consists of the body of, of who they are and what they believe in. Like when you have a group of people that big that believe in one goal and they're, believe in their leader, it's pretty damn scary if you ask me.
Well, I mean, go back to the schedule, right? We got week 1 Falcons, we eke out a win. Then you go 49ers, Chiefs, Bucks. You win one of those games. You win the 49ers game, you're close in the Chiefs game, maybe close in the Bucks game. You got a pretty easy schedule to really put up some yards. And then you get the Eagles in the playoff conversation. Like that's like you went from being a dark horse to a real candidate there, I think.
It's quite possible. So Jalen Hurts has a 50-1 odds to becoming the NFL's MVP this season. Then I don't know if you want to go over this more in detail, Morgan, because you actually brought this up to my attention for the podcast.
Yeah, well, I just thought it was interesting. Last week we're talking about him being the 31st ranked quarterback in the league. This is PFF to put out that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then here you have BR. Obviously it's BR. Take it with a grain of salt. It's also PFF. Take it with a grain of salt, right? So everyone's got their own opinions, but here we see 3 graphics. I just took the first three guys, and I feel like similar skill set. But you look at the stats that they're predicting, and I don't think that any of these are out of the realm of possibilities. I think that that's a pretty good line for Jalen Hurts. You end up with that line. Maybe a few more touchdowns, but 8 rushing touchdowns, 724 yards. You'd like to see that passing number a bit higher, but if you couple that all with a pretty good completion percentage, that's quite the stat line, especially for fantasy. Any fantasy buyers, buy low here. It could be.
I got him on my dynasty team, so I'm good.
Yeah, I was thinking about keeping him myself, but yeah, but I mean, Lamar Jackson, similar, a few more yards, more touchdowns, similar rushing stat line, and then finally Kyler Murray. I mean, if you look at who he's got on the team, you better hope that Kyler Murray's putting up this kind of numbers. If he doesn't, you're starting to look at can this guy carry a team? I don't think there's any doubt in my mind that he's gonna do this. But yeah, similar kind of stats, and I think that you're talking about an Eagles team that's gonna have a much better defense this year. Maybe not a great defense, but if you're getting that stat line from Jalen Hurts, you're winning a lot of these games. If it's only by a touchdown, you're still winning them.
I think the key thing about all these stats is this, the idea that he's only throwing 7 interceptions, which if anybody's really paid attention the last couple of years, that's Carson Wentz's, that's been his ceiling with interceptions year in, year out, except for last season where, went to shit. But
it would be nice to not see all those interceptions again, man. It
it'll be great. And I think the key thing, like somebody mentioned before, is that he's gonna have starter reps. He's gonna have a preseason. He's gonna actually have an actual off season, and to prepare for the season this time around. Last year, COVID came in and completely wiped the face of the earth with sports. It's gonna. I have no reason to not have optimism for this player and for this team.
Let me ask you, who has the better stats, Jalen Hurts or Carson Wentz?
Complete honesty.
Yeah.
I think Carson might have the better stats.
I think Carson's going to have more passing yards, more passing touchdowns. I think that you might see less interceptions from Hurts. If it's a good season, that's kind of what you're hoping. If you want a good season from Hurts, you're thinking for less interceptions than Wentz. But rushing stats aren't going to compare. But I think the most important stats going to be wins, right? That's what we care about. Yeah. And I think that the Colts are in a division that's starting to get tougher. I mean, especially over the last couple of years with the Titans, but the Jags are no joke. I think that, they definitely added some pieces, and who knows what Trevor Lawrence can do. I mean, even the game watching Joe Burrow, man, that the Bengals, for all their holes, there's something to be said for a decent first overall pick quarterback. They can really pull up the bootstraps and get a team going.
And they have a nice wide receiver course this season. I mean, you have Tyler Boyd, Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, and Jamar Chase.
Yeah, but you're talking about the Jaguars too. Laviska. You got Keelan Cole still.
Shark.
Yeah,
Shark. Right.
Did they just get Marvin Jones too?
Marvin Jones.
He is in Jacksonville. Yeah, that's right.
two really good running backs. I don't know why they spent a first on a running back, but you can't deny the talent. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's really going to come down to who can do better in the division.
For me, when it comes to Carson, like it's really up to him because I really feel like Indy is a good team, and it's really up to Carson that it'll determine what their season is going to look like. So we'll see how he'll handle that pressure. I mean, listen, I don't want Carson to leave. I really feel like we kind of both sides were in the wrong, but I do believe in his skill, and I feel like with the way that Indy's offense is set up, I think he's going to be fine. I really do.
So who do you think has a better season? Let's say like that. Not even stats. Has a better season.
I think Carson. I think Carson has a better season too, and it's fine. And I think Carson's gonna have a good season. I think Jalen's gonna have a good season too. But we're talking about Jalen in his first full year as a starter. So I'll take anything that was better than Carson last year, pretty much.
Yeah,
that was pretty bad last year. I feel like I'm getting like a little PTSD when I think about last season.
He averaged like what, an interception and a half a game, something like that. Over his like 14 starts or whatever.
Like
it was.
6 sacks a game, but yeah.
yeah.
I do want to throw
you don't have to watch that O-line, man. That was
listen, if it's a healthy, I just find it weird that this team was so unhealthy with Doug Peterson. They weren't as unhealthy with Chip, and I feel like they weren't as unhealthy with Andy.
Bring back Chip for the smoothies.
Just
keep this team healthy.
I personally feel like, I don't know what Sirianni's doing in that regard to, with sports science and stuff like that, but nobody's talking about that at all.
Well, so one of the things that I saw with the interviews, and I just been watching these religiously over the last week, but one of the things they did say is that this year compared to the last couple of years, OTAs is way different. It's playbook, it's film. They're not running as hard. Obviously that's going to be the case anyways with the new offense, but I think there is something there where I think we saw that in the late version of Doug Peterson where, you start to see these reports coming out where like they're not doing contact on Monday, Tuesday anymore. They're not tackling on these certain days, but I think there's something going on there where they're definitely going to try and keep these guys a bit healthier.
I'm sorry, if I may just interrupt to go off topic real quick. We have an Eagles moment here. I have the Phillies game right behind you guys. So Andrew McCutchen hits a home run. He's rounding around third, and with the third base coach, he does the rock, paper, scissors.
True.
How can you not love that?
I love the call with Dickerson. That was great.
So sorry to go off topic.
No, you're straight, man. Don't worry about it. I mean, I am a Mets fan, but it's okay.
You guys are first. You have nothing to worry about.
Yeah, there we go. But I do want to throw a little curveball. We have about, give or take like 20 minutes left. Breakout player of the year for the Eagles. Who do you guys have?
Ooh,
I didn't tell you guys this on purpose. I didn't want you guys to prepare for this. I want you to speak from the heart with this one.
Offense or defense, right?
Anything.
Okay, cool. We can't say Jalen, right? Because that's the obvious, right?
He could. It's up to you. It's your guy.
Genuinely, I do think that that's going to be the breakout star because you're talking about all the pressure and all the expectations that we have for him, and I like we talked about his DNA, the way he is built. I feel like he's built for this, all the trials and tribulations he's gone through in his career, like going through what he went through in Alabama, really prepared him for what went down last year. So I really think he's going to be that breakout star. I think he's going to be that stat line that Morgan was talking about. I don't think that's out of the realm, man. I really genuinely believe it's going to be Jalen Hurts. Hurts season, baby.
Okay. What about you, Morgan?
All right. Well, I'm going to give you a couple just because I think one of them might be a bit obvious too is Miles Sanders. I think that
on purpose, didn't you?
Oh, did you had him too?
All right, my guy. I know you knew.
I'll leave it. So I got other ones.
No, you're good. You're good. That was my guy.
No, it's all good. But obvious reasons. But I think it's a bit of a weird one. I don't know if he's gonna be like considered a breakout player, but I think Rodney McLeod's gonna be really good this year. For years, I feel like you had an underrated safety. This is one of those like those scouts guys. Where you have PFF. I think Kayvon Wallace again. Yeah,
that's a good one.
Yeah, that's a good one. I think the only reason I'm hesitant on Wallace is I don't know how they're going to use him. If they use him correctly, And I have no doubt that they'll find a place for him, but I'm not sure that he's really going to have
a defined role.
Yeah. Like, I think he's still going to be situational. I think it's going to be next year that you really see him as a feature part of the defense. But I think Rodney McLeod, again, like an underrated guy, one of those, like, the numbers don't always tell the story. But we saw it a bit last year where, like, kind of a secondary in shambles, he's the diamond in the rough a bit, and then had that terrible injury. He's coming off an injury again, so it might take him a bit to get started, but I think he's just going to be solid this year. I think he knows that this team is finally his. There's kind of that, like, ghost of the old defense last year. I don't think you're going to have that, and I think you're really going to see him take charge. So he's my breakout player, I guess.
Okay. So I have a obvious but not so obvious player. And I have a bone to pick with this player too at the same time. I'm going with Jalen Reagor. Just because
I didn't even talk about Sanders. All right, we'll go back. We'll circle back.
Yeah, we'll talk about Miles. But to me with Jalen, it's kind of like you were drafted the first round, but you were not the wrong pick. You were just the wrong need. That's how I see it. Devontae Smith is here, and he's the correct need. But now you have Jalen Reagor. You have Jalen Reagor, who's a speed threat, who could play the slot, who could do the end rounds, and who can even go vertical. So now you have a defense that's going to be focusing on what Devontae Smith is doing. They're going to be focusing on what Jalen Hurts is doing because Jalen Hurts could move the ball on the run. And to me, it's just open season for Reagor. Like, you have the middle of the field that's going to be all yours now. Dallas Goedert doesn't occupy the middle of the field that much. It was Zach Ertz, who will not be an Eagle within probably the next couple of days. Jalen Reagor, it's just raining stars for him. I'm not saying to be a superstar, but you have to just show out this season. Like, it's right there. You get me? Like, I feel like they're finally going to use him how he needs to be used. Screen passes, slot, vertical. Like, it's the sky's the limits for him. But I'll be extremely disappointed if he doesn't show out. And I think my beef with Reagor as well is, and my beef with this new generation of players is the lenience on social media. Like, I hate it more than anything in the world. Like, I like when these guys, they talk their talk. That's great. But to me, like, don't use social media as the outlet to, you get me, like, to voice your, how you feel about the fans talking about you. Like, if you feel like fans are talking trash, detach yourself from that. Focus on your game. Just focus on what you were about to do, what you were meant to do. It's not about you getting paid to do it. It's about you doing what you love. At the end of the day, like, that's my thing. Just focus on the love of the game.
Brian, I think you hit it right there at the end. I mean, for me, when I watch Jalen Reagor, it's mostly mental with him. Like you mentioned that, like, well, yeah, I agree. Like, for me, we all get hate. Like, you don't have to be an athlete. Like, we all get hate. Like, you just keep ignoring and keep it moving, right? But for me, last year, he obviously had to deal with the injury. That's a bad blow too.
Yeah.
But the whole, he was listening to that Justin Jefferson crap. Like, every week, everyone's
it's
like,
just tough not to listen to. But
exactly. So for him, go out and play your game, follow your teammates, listen to this coaching staff, and continue that development. I think another thing too is Big 12 secondaries, a lot different than the NFL secondaries, and he had to go through that transition as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if he stays out of his head so much and just goes out and balls, gets better every day, get a little bit better every day, I think he'll be all right. I think he'll be all right because I agree with you. He's at the slot. I think he's going to love it.
Yeah. It's also weird. I feel like, you don't really talk about a rookie being a mentor, but I think he's going to learn a lot from Devontae Smith.
Mm-hmm.
As big of an athlete as he is, as impressive as an athlete, you don't really see a lot of nuance to his game. I think that's what Devontae Smith's going to teach him. But yeah, like even in the interview that he did this past week, they brought it up, and honestly, a terrible interview. Like they just got on him early, and I think that he was just in the wrong mood. But even still, they're talking about the social media stuff, and I don't know that he's learned his lesson. There's still some maturity things he might have to work through. But as long as it doesn't get on the field, like as long as he still puts in work, I think you're right.
I feel like that was like haunting him on the field. Like, as an athlete, like when you have that kind of stuff going on around you and you're on the field, like the field should be your escape. But I feel like with Jalen, it was just like it was haunting him way too much.
Yeah,
and it sucked because it reminded me so much of Nelly. Like, that's the same thing Nelly went through. Nelly was, he's a talented kid, Rager to me far more talented, but I just don't want to see Rager fall down that rabbit hole.
It ain't easy playing in Philly, man.
No, not at all.
It's true. I just hope they give him his targets, man, because like you talking about Jefferson, he averaged like 3 or 4 more targets than Rager did. Like, of course he's gonna do better.
Yeah, of course.
On that stat alone, right? But
and Jefferson wasn't running verticals every single time, so
yeah, exactly. And he had Thielen. Anyways, we can go on.
Yeah, we go on with Rager. It was a bad scheme. Like that's why I said like he wasn't the need for Doug Peterson. I don't understand why Doug wanted Rager so much. I'm grateful to have him, yes, but Justin Jefferson was the player.
That's why I fell in love with him.
Yeah, and it was to me it was a bad optics on our former coach. But we could talk about Miles Sanders all day.
Yeah,
if he gets 20 carries a game, like, I'm gonna love it. Like Miles Sanders to me has been held back greatly by the old coaching staff, and I personally feel like with Jalen Hurts, I mean, he showed out with Jalen in those 4 games.
Yeah,
something about having Jalen back there really helped out. Helped the run.
Yeah, you're talking about a guy who was top 5 in 60+ yard plays.
Mm-hmm.
And you're talking about bringing into an offense who like screams efficiency and consistency. So I think like the problem with Sanders, what you saw, and again, if you're a fantasy player, like you were banging your head against the wall. You saw one great game, one not so great game, one great play, one not so great play.
It's frustrating.
You're just not going to have those as much this year. I think you're going to see him put his shoulder down, get those 3-4 yards. And I mean, he's still going to be part of rotation. That's the one thing. Like, it's still going to be him, then whoever it is, Gainwell, Scott, carry on. I just don't know what it's going to look like, but the efficiency, man, like I think he's going to be one of those running backs that's averaging like 5-6 yards a carry. Like it's really going to be that good. It's going to be impressive. Whether or not that like turns into 120 yards a game, I don't know, but the averages are going to be out of this world, I think, this year.
I'm so excited for Jalen and the Miles show. Give me those RPOs. Just give me the read option in general. Like, I want to see more of that. Just a little sprinkle. I think a little sprinkle will be a lot of fun. But no, this whole running back core, just the fact that this coaching staff might actually prioritize these running backs is just exciting in its own. I personally believe, just not to go too far ahead, but I personally believe that Kerryon Johnson and Gainwell will be the other 2 running backs. I think Boston Scott will make the roster only because I feel like he's my favorite as far as the kick returner goes. Well, I think we're going to keep 4 running backs. That's just me.
Boston Scott is my Greg Ward. He needs to leave too. He needs to get out of the roster.
Those 2 might still make the roster. It's good. It's great.
Listen, I would take Greg Ward over Boston Scott any day.
Yes, but I don't know who's going to return those kicks. That's the only reason why I see Boston Scott.
Well, you got Rager. I mean, Rager had that punt return for like 70-something yards against the Packers.
But we're talking about punt return. But I'm talking about kick return. I want Boston as the kick returner and Rager as the punt returner. But so I think being able to prioritize the running game, actual rotation, it's gonna be a lot of fun. I don't think it's just gonna be Miles, but I think it's just going to be just the whole running back core. It's gonna be great to see. For Miles, it's just I really want to see if he can hit those holes kind of in the inside. I know his body size. I know what his game is. But I really want to see if he can actually do that because I see McCaffrey do that down south in Carolina. I want to see if he can actually do that. But listen, he's got that breakout speed. Like how many long touchdowns did he have last season? So for Miles, is just playing his game. It's really all it is for him and the coaching staff. I think it'll fall in place. He should have a really big season.
Do you think that so a question we have right now is I'm not sure if it's a question or statement, but the rotation of the running backs. The way they used Jonathan Taylor and Nyheim Hines, and Marlon Mack at the time, like it was supposed to be a huge rotation. Obviously, you have similar. What's the word I'm looking for? Not talent, but kind of a similar build with Kerryon Johnson, Kenneth Gainwell, and Miles Sanders. I think, listen, Sanders probably like 15 to 17 touches a game. You have Gainwell, who's probably going to be once in a blue showing up. Kerryon's going to be there for pass blocking, but the key thing that people don't realize about Miles is he's already a really good pass blocking running back. So you have Kerryon Johnson there, yes, for pass blocking, but Miles could take that load as well. And having Miles there on the field for pass blocking is going to distract the defense and thinking that he's actually there for a receiving option or even a screen pass.
I also think his hands are gonna be better, but I'll let Morgan get this one.
Yeah, well, I think we're kind of all heading in the right direction, in the same direction. Is that you're not just going to see an improvement in the run game, but the pass game as well, and again, just how they're using him, right? Like it's not just going to be these wheel routes that you're throwing 20 yards downfield. Like just get the ball in his hands, let him make stuff happen. I think again, the worry I have is there's a reason why Miles Sanders hasn't been the feature back in the first couple of years, and that's just because of the stress on your body. Like I just don't think, except for those maybe top 5 guys, I don't think you're going to see that anymore in the NFL. That's just the way that it's leaning. And I think there's something to be said for having a guy who's been a part of a rotation and just dropping him into an RB1 role. That's going to really take a toll on your body. So I think you will start to see him maybe take over carries towards the end of the season, depending on health. Like I think, again, similar to Jonathan Taylor last year, you really did see him take over that role. But I think you're still going to see a rotation. I don't think that's going anywhere. Again, fantasy, that sucks, but I don't think there's many RB1s left in the league. Like that's just not a thing anymore, unfortunately.
Yeah, I agree, man. I listen. The play calling is going to be everything for him, but you heard in the press conference when that one workout 2 weeks ago, like he was excited for screens getting involved there. So I agree with Morgan. You just got to get that ball in his hands. When you have an electric playmaker like that, you got to find those plays, and that's where the coaching staff comes into play, because I do think this offensive coaching staff with Sirianni, they're going to scheme these players so that they can be in the right spots, and he stresses that all the time. I think he's going to do that not only for Miles but for all these players. Just give these guys what makes them produce, pretty much.
So we're okay. I'm not against that at all. And given Miles' injury history every offseason with the hamstrings, it's kind of like it's telling that it'll definitely be a rotation.
Real quick, I just want to say that interview that John's talking about, like the most excited, the most fun I've ever seen Miles Sanders. Like,
oh yeah,
completely came out of his shell. If you guys get a chance, like rewatch it. Like it's just like you feel the energy coming. You get excited. Like it's one of those interviews. Like, damn, this is the Miles that like we're seeing now. Like I love it.
Morgan, more games, more yards, baby.
Yeah. He just lit up. Like he, again, Philly media is hard, and so sometimes these guys come in knowing that they're gonna, why aren't you as productive as you could be? Blah blah blah. He just like took it in stride. He's like, I'm looking forward to this. I'm loving it. Like it was just cool. Like, you just felt the energy. The whole like all the interviews, man. It's just these guys love being here, and it just makes me like so excited.
It's definitely gonna be a fun season. I mean, like I said, the buy-in to Nick Sirianni's culture is refreshing. You barely see that. Like I feel like in sports nowadays, unless kind of to compare it is the Sixers. Doc Rivers becoming a coach, and you see this revamped culture in Philly. You see Joel Embiid losing weight and getting his body in shape. You see Tobias Harris taking his game to another level. Like it's refreshing to finally see that for the Eagles.
And accountability.
Lane Johnson stressed that accountability is a new feature. It's like an iOS update, apparently.
it's big, man. It really is big.
Yeah, I mean, he lost Deuce Staley, who he's great friends with, loved that guy, and was still excited for the new coaching staff. Like there's something to be said for that. Absolutely.
Who's the new running back? Sorry, go ahead, John.
That's a question. Are you guys worried at all about the age of this coaching staff at all?
Oh, not at all. I find it refreshing. I like it.
I agree.
Oh, Morgan, you're kind of bothered by it.
I'm not bothered by it. I'm not worried by it, but I think that, you have to expect some growing pains. Like that's just like, it's cautious optimism. I think that there's going to be some head scratching moments where it's like, and it may not come out to the playoffs, even with the Rams, you see Sean McVay, 49ers, similar things like, right. It's just going to take some time. And I really hope I'm used to Philly by now. It's not always a place you get a lot of time. And I really hope they give this coaching staff the time they need.
think the only coaches over 50 is what, Stoutland and our new D-line coach, Rucker, whatever his name is. But
Yeah.
everyone else
it's,
is
it's,
like
it's a very
30,
young group.
40.
They average like 30, I think 30 years old, something like that, or 29.
Yeah, I mean but that's like, and it's funny because like I do feel like sometimes Lori does run a little bit like a corporate office. Like a lot of big major corporations, they're going young, CEOs are young.
Yeah.
That's kind of what the Eagles thought about that too. But that's like the trend in the NFL too. What the Brandon Staley, the new coach of the Chargers. I mean, Joe Brady was about to get a job this year, so
I was dying for Joe Brady to be an Eagle.
I wouldn't mind Joe Brady, but
That would
see
have
if
been
they're
great.
gonna-
It would have been like seeing Morgan on the sidelines.
One day.
One day. So we got one question before we wrap it up in the chat. Jock Talk asks, would you bring back Trey Burton?
He's a free agent now?
Yeah, he actually is. He's been doing a lot of interviews lately. And I'm a little sour because I did reach out to Trey for an interview. And he told me no. At least he told me no and then leave me on red. But yeah, a little sour about that still.
All right. Well, just for my man Bryan, I'm gonna say no. Yeah, I think that whether or not you bring Trey Burton depends on whether or not Zach Ertz is on this roster.
Yeah.
Like I think that if you are keeping Zach Ertz, then your third tight end needs to be a block first guy. Like I think that's what I've seen out of Sirianni's offenses is that tight end's not as big of a feature. So if you are going to get that guy, I mean, I love Dallas as a blocker, but you got to take some of that physical toll off his body. So I think you just bring in the guy that can block. And Trey, not terrible, but that's not what he's known for, right?
Right.
And that's the key thing that I think people are overlooking is that the fact that Sirianni is not as focused on tight ends as the Peterson era was.
Yeah.
This is very, very true. Well, I'm going to say this. If I can't have Greg Ward or Boston Scott back, there's no way I want Trey Burton. But
I mean, I'll trade Greg Ward for Trey Burton.
Two former quarterbacks? Sure.
Why not, bro? You like converted players, right? I'll give you one for one.
Now you're just talking crazy, bro.
No, I wouldn't do that.
If we're talking about moving on, like, trying to find those next players, like, we don't need to bring back Trey Burton.
All right, so I lied. We have one more question, and then we'll wrap it up.
No worries.
If we get a quarterback like Nelson, so Steven Nelson, does that make our defense potentially top half of the league? I believe so. I mean, Steven Nelson and Darius Slay as your top two cornerbacks is pretty good in the defensive line that we have. I wouldn't say like a top, like top five, but
yeah, top half's not a high bar. Like, I feel like we could be there regardless, But
I mean, for me, it's all to linebacker play, right? I mean, that was terrible last year. We'll see how Jonathan Gannon and Chris Infante figure out the linebackers.
I can't believe he did that on Twitter and ran with it. People were actually hitting over like, "Hey, can I interview you?"
He looks a lot like Rallis is his name? Yeah,
Nick Rallis.
He looks a lot like him. But no, that second cornerback spot really is a big question mark. So I mean, I'll literally take any veteran cornerback that can play cornerback at
and that's an even bigger question mark than the linebacker position because we have Eric Wilson, we have Davion Taylor who's going to probably play this season. Sean Bradley's probably going to play. Alex Singleton.
Yeah,
I think I'm missing somebody. T.J. Edwards and did we draft any rookies for linebacker? Was it Patrick Johnson?
Jacoby Stevens is a linebacker.
Oh, there we go. Jacoby Stevens as well.
We'll see what he will. Patrick Johnson from was it Tulane or Tulsa? Tulane. I think it was
Tulane.
But yeah, but the second cornerback position, that's definitely the biggest question mark for me. I mean, I don't want to see Avonte Maddox back there. I think there's a spot for. I think Avonte Maddox still very serviceable for this defense. I think
Avonte Maddox could be a great Rodney McLeod replacement.
Yeah, that too. I mean, I don't mind him at safety. Definitely. I mean, don't mind him at that nickel corner. We'll see how how that whole rotation will look in general, but. Yeah, man, we definitely need that second cornerback. I'm just visioning what Atlanta can do to us on week 1 right now.
Oh, I keep forgetting about that offense.
The thing I'm going to say about CB2 is that I think, and I might be kind of speaking out of pocket here, but I think that you're going to see a defense that we have not seen in the NFL before. I don't think there's a defense that's comparable. I don't think there's anything like it. And everything's in context, right? And so I don't think you're going to be able to frame problems and questions the same. Like, I don't think it's going to be a CB2 problem as much is going to be a coverage problem. Can we disguise our coverages enough to hide the fact that we don't have one guy? Like Jim Schwartz, it's like, who do you have on your team? At what position? Are they good enough to cover the other person on the team? It's not going to be that way this year. Like you don't have that. So is it going to be? Are the safeties going to be able to help? Are the linebackers going to be able to drop back in coverage to provide enough? I don't like. It's just I don't even know. Like I think you might see like we haven't seen cornerback blitzes in forever. You probably see some of those this year. You know, the question might be, hey, can the CB2 blitz fast enough so that the quarterback doesn't get the ball off? In which case, how is that going to be a problem? You know what I mean? So I just like I think that we're looking at this still in like a Jim Schwartz way, where it's like, okay, is our CB2 going to be able to cover their number 2 receiver? And the answer is straight up no. But I don't think that's going to be a problem. Like I'm maybe it's too optimistic, but I think it's like I'm just so excited to watch this defense and how they fix those problems. Like they're just going to look at it a completely different way.
So are you predicting like a positionless defense? To say the least?
As much as you can in football, you're still going to have line, but I think well, that's what I'm talking about. This is what I'm trying to compare it to, and I'm speaking because I'm a Raptors fan, right? Like this is what I'm comparing. Well, yeah, but like I'm comparing to that where like you don't say like, okay, is Kyle Lowry able to cover their point guard? You don't say, okay, Fred VanVleet. Like there's a couple times like they box and one against Curry, right? Like there's a couple times, but like you don't say like, is this person better defensively? Because it is really a team effort. So I think you're going to see some games where okay, they're targeting that. But we're not going to see like Jim Schwartz, like, okay, they're targeting our CB2. Let's keep doing the same thing. Like they're going to give them safety help immediately. They're going to make you like win in a different way. So I don't know. Like, again, like it is a problem, but I think that like bringing on a Steven Nelson, like, is that as necessary as people think? I don't think so. I think that if you can bring him on, great. But if it screws you salary cap wise for the next year, or if you don't have money to pay, I don't know. I just like, I don't know how to explain what I'm thinking, but I just think you're going to see defense in a completely different light after this year.
I'm curious.
You're creative, man.
I'm very curious now. But that is all the time that we have today, guys. Morgan, John, thank you guys for coming on and embracing the Flippin the Birds culture.
Let's go.
Shout out to our special guest as well.
Yes. Now that you guys know he's my co-host. Let me clarify that. Yeah, guys. I greatly appreciate you guys coming on today and sharing the love on Flippin the Birds. Morgan, one of our great PSN writers, and John, one of our great podcasters. Actually, you run Due Out by the River for our union team.
Yeah, Due by the River is
I've been saying Due Up all these years.
It's all good. It's all good. Due by the River. It is the Philly Sports Network podcast. If you are a Union Eagle fan, definitely check us out. We'll be recording on Thursday. Yes, it's a great show. It is a great show, and I love coming on here anytime, man. I hope I get to come on during the season too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We'll definitely figure things. I mean, that was the cool thing about Chris's hiatus, is that we got to see a rotation and actually see different dynamics, which is pretty dope. I'm all into it. So
it's a blast.
And like Jalen was saying, you could get freaky. It didn't sound as cool coming out of my mouth, but you guys had it. But until next week, guys, I'm Bryan Cameron. This is Morgan. This is John, and this is Flippin the Birds. See you guys next week.